So, hi, welcome back for Module 5. In Module 4, we looked at how the sails work. And I did mention the shape of the sail, the curvature that was in the sail. And in Module 5, we're going to have a look at the sail controls. Now, all they do is control how much curvature there is in the sail and where that curvature is. There's a few controls to have a look at. And during this module, we'll be getting the model out again, and I'll do my best to explain the sail controls using that model. But all the controls are pretty simple. There's just a rope that pulls on the sail, and when it pulls on the sail, it flattens that sail in that particular area. Let's have a look at those. So we're learning how the sail works, and this is how we can control the shape of the sail. Now, those black stripes are there so that we can see the curvature. If you look at that white section, pretty hard to see the curve in there, but if we look at that black line, we can see that the black lines are curved. They're there to just make it a bit easier so that we can see the curvature that's there. And this boat that's in the lead, you can see that their sail is quite deep. So look at the curve there on that black line. And this boat seems to have a flatter sail. So I'd say that this boat here that's in the lead is slightly more powerful. Maybe that's why they're in the lead. But let's have a little look at what these controls do. Again, we've got a bit more vocabulary to learn for this module. The sail has various different holes in them, and that's how we attach it to the boat. So at the bottom of the sail, the leading edge at the front of the sail, that's called a tack. The one at the back is called a clew, and the one at the top is called the head. Now, I had been sailing for probably 3 or 4 years before I got the tack and clew the right way around, so don't stress too much about that, but that's what they're called. And you can learn that. It will help if you know what the tack and a clew is, but don't stress too much about it. Like I say, sailing can be quite a long apprenticeship to get your head around all of these new terms. That's what they are. Come back and revisit these modules as many times as you want to. So like us, we have a head at the top, and the bottom of the sail is called a foot. The back edge of the sail is called the leech, and the forward edge is called the luff. So one of the terms we sometimes use with sailing is that we're luffing. And that simply means that the sail is flapping, and the luff, the front edge of the sail, would be the first part of the sail that starts to luff or flap. So there we go. Tack at the bottom of the sail, most forward hole. Clew, bottom of the sail again, at the back of the sail. Head is the top of the sail. Foot is the bottom. Luff is that leading edge. Leech is the trailing edge, or the back edge of the sail. These black lines on the sail, they're where we think the battens might be. So often sails will have hard plastic bits in them, like plastic rods, and they will stiffen up that part of the sail and make that bit of the sail flatter and less curved, or the curvature will be at the front. So to control the sail, or to control the shape in the sail, whether it's really curved or flatter, we have BACKSTAY, we have Cunningham, Vang, a Jig Car, an Outhaul, and a Traveller. And in this module, we're going to go through all of those, and I'm going to do my very best to explain what they do, so that when you get out on the boat, you can tune your sail to the weather conditions that we have. The Outhaul is probably the easiest control to get our heads around, and it's simply a rope that's tied to the clew of the sail, and it goes through the boom, and somewhere on the cabin top, there'll be a cleat that stops it from moving. If we pull on that rope, we're simply pulling the clew to the end of the boom, and that will reduce the depth of the sail. So If we take this end and stretch the sail out so it's a bit longer, then it won't be quite so fat in the middle. It'll be a flatter sail. In heavy conditions, we'll want a flat sail. In light conditions, we'll want a fuller sail, more curve. And that's simply because a sail that's got lots of curvature to it will create more lift than a sail that's really flat. So if we're sailing in light conditions, we'll have a full sail that develops lots of power. As we start getting overpowered, we'll pull on the outhaul, we'll flatten the sail off, and we'll make our sails more efficient for those conditions. It'll create less drag because it's not as fat, but it won't be creating as much power. And that's because we've got lots of power and we're trying to get rid of some so we continue to have control of the boat. Now, here's the outhaul on an MRX. So here we've got the boom. This grey rope there is the outhaul, and that's the clue of the sail. And if you notice the position, it's just above where the main sheet connects. So this shiny bit here is where the main sheet, this rope that controls where the boom is, connects to the boom, and the clue is just above that. Now that's in its eased position, and up here we'll see that we've got quite a lot of depth to the sail. This photograph on the right hand side, you can see we've got that beautiful curved sail with a flat portion towards the back, a little curve at the front. So it's a nice wing shape section, quite deep. And simply the deeper the sail, the more power it's going to create, the faster we're going to go. And that's great for light wind conditions. If we pull on the outhaul and stretch the sail closer to the end of the boom, you see that the clue was in this position in the previous photograph, and we've pulled it down the boom towards the end to that position. We'll see that that's made a significant difference to the depth of the sail, or how much curve it's got. You see here that it does have a little bit of curve on that photo, but when we look under the boom, up the sail, we can see that the sail is significantly flatter. So we've reduced the depth of the sail, we've reduced the curvature of the sail, we've reduced how much power the sail will create. And that's exactly what we need to do as the wind increases. So if we're getting into 20 knots of wind, we're going to need to flatten our sails and reduce how much power we're creating so that we can still have control of the boat. Now the Cunningham is quite a neat control. It's a little bit harder to understand. It actually does a very similar job to the outhaul, but instead of pulling the sail to the end of the boom, it's pulling the sail down the mast towards the boom. So this is like a downhaul. Outhaul pulls the sail out to the end of the boom. A downhaul pulls the sail down. There's a very good reason why this is called a Cunningham. And in the 1950s, Mr. Cunningham was an America's Cup sailor. At that time, the America's Cup boats had a fixed length for their mast. And they didn't have Cunninghams back then because they hadn't been invented. So if they wanted to control the tension, how much curvature there was in their luff of the sail, that front edge, they would pull the sail up more. So they'd use the halyard to pull the sail up and put more tension on the sail and flatten that part of the sail. So for them to pull the sail up the mast more, the mast had to be longer than the sail. Mr. Cunningham thought that was a stupid idea. He wanted the sail to go right to the top. He wanted the biggest sail he could have. But that meant he had no control over the tension of the sail on that front edge. So Mr. Cunningham decided that he would modify a downhaul so that it could work in this position and pull the sail down rather than pulling it up. And he did quite well. He won the America's Cup that year. He had a bigger sail than everybody else, and he got a sail control named after him. So a bit of a complicated name. I hope that explanation helps you remember that a Cunningham Very, very similar to a downhaul, and it does what that name suggests. It hauls the sail down, and the reason why we want to do that is because we want to flatten the curvature that's in that front edge of the sail. Now, here we have the tack on an MRX. The Cunningham is up a little bit higher, up here, and this rope here, the white rope, is the Cunningham. Let's have a closer look at that. So here we've got the Cunningham up there as it attaches to the sail. The rope down the back there is what's going to do all the pulling. And if we pull on that Cunningham, we're going to flatten the sail. So in light conditions, we're going to have it eased. You can see a few wrinkles in the sail. I would probably want to pull on that Cunningham just to get rid of those wrinkles, make our sail nice and smooth, but only just get rid of them. I don't want to put a lot of tension on it in light wind because I do want as much power as I can get. I just want a smooth sail so the air flows over it really easily. So light conditions, a really light amount of tension just to make the sail look nice and have a nice full shape in that leading edge of the sail. If we pull on the Cunningham, as seen in this picture, we pull all of the slack in the sail down to the bottom. And this bit looks pretty ugly. That's not going to work very well. But above that, the sail is much flatter. And that's going to reduce how much power the sail has got. So here we have heavy winds, more tension on the Cunningham. That will result in a flatter sail and less power, more control over the boat. So the boom vang. Now the boom vang is not this shiny pole. That's just a spring that helps support the boom. The boom vang is this rope that sits underneath that shiny pole, very much like this. And simply, if we pull on that boom vang, then it's going to get, those pulleys are going to get closer together and that boom is going to go down. And if we pull the boom down, then that's going to increase the tension on the leech of the sail, the back edge. And again, that's going to change how powerful our sail is. If we pull really hard on the boom vang, we're going to end up bending our mast. And that doesn't sound like a very good thing, but on modern boats, masts are designed to bend, and it helps us control the shape of the sail. So on the boom, we had the outhaul stretching the sail to the end of the boom. Now we're using the boom vang to pull the boom down, which puts tension on the leech that pulls the top of the mast back. And because the top of the mast is going back, the bottom bit of the mast actually goes forward. And that stretches the sail. Instead of pulling the back edge out, the front edge is going forwards. So it kind of does the same thing as the outhaul, but just a little bit further up. It also puts a lot of tension in that leech and flattens that part of the sail. So bending the mast, it's not a permanent bend. We're just using the springy nature of the mast material, whether it's aluminium or carbon fiber, and keep it held flat. Now, when we look at the MRX boats, they also have a backstay, and that's a piece of wire rope that goes to the top of the mast. And all this is just a more efficient way of bending the mast. So if we have the backstay off, our mast will be straight compared to the mast that's slightly further away from us. And again, it's just a matter of depowering the boat. If we pull the backstay on, we bend the mast, it will create a slightly flatter sail, and that will create less power from that sail, and we'll have more control over the boat. I know these controls seemingly quite complicated. The simplest I can make this is that all of the controls should be adjusted at the same time. If you are sailing in heavy winds, you want to pull them all on. If you don't have control of the boat, pull them all on harder. Flatten the sail off as much as you can. With a bit of time and a bit of experience, you'll be able to look at the sail and say, oh yeah, I need a bit more boom Vang, or I need a bit more Cunningham. That will come with time. For now, at level 1, just know that we're going to change the shape of our sail. It's a complicated way of saying we're going to have a big curve in the sail when it's light wind, and we're going to flatten the sail off in heavy wind. For level 1, that's all we need to know. We also need to know the controls that will do that. So Outhaul will control the bottom of the sail. Cunningham, the front edge of the sail. Boom Vang and the backstay will help us control the back edge of the sail. They're all just making a curve in the sail or flattening the sail. It depends on the strength of the wind and how much power we want as to how much curve we have there. So don't get lost in all of these new words too much. Big curve, lots of power. Smaller curve, less power. These are the controls that will help us flatten our sail. And all it is a rope that pulls on part of the sail. The Traveller is something that is really useful. It's something that you probably only find on more sport or racing orientated boats. A lot of cruising boats actually nowadays are not even fitting Travellers, because the manufacturers think, well, people aren't using them, so why bother fitting them? It is a useful control though. And the Traveller is actually this piece at the bottom of the boat here, and it's just a track that pulley moves on. Now, I run the risk of confusing you even more, so I'm trying really hard with the model to explain this in a moment. But the boom Vang forward down the mast there, or down the boom, is not as strong as the main sheet. The main sheet, the rope that controls where the boom is really powerful. It's a bigger, thicker rope. There's more turns around the pulley. That will pull the boom down as well as in. Now, if we're going to use the main sheet to pull the boom down, put all that tension on the leech of the sail, bend that mast back in the same way that the boom Vang does, we're going to lose the ability to position the sail. So all the Traveller does is that it means that we can set the tension on the main sheet, the rope that controls that main sail. We can set the tension by how much tension we want in the leech of the sail, how flat we want the sail. And then we can position the sail by moving this pulley. We move the pulley along the Traveller. If we want the sail out a little bit more, we pull the Traveller down and the sail will move out to this position. If we pull the pulley towards us, then the sail will move towards us. So that's another way of setting the shape in the sail. Set the shape by the main sheet, position the main sheet, position the boom, and the sail by using the Traveller. Really useful. Now, I won't be surprised if you're feeling a little overloaded. So here we can see a Traveller being used by a Volvo ocean racing boat. If you look at the water, you can see that there's really big foamy waves, lots of water coming over the front of the boat. That's really strong wind conditions. They've dropped their Traveller down. You can almost see the tension in that sail. It's really flat. So they've flattened their sail off as much as they can, and they've dropped their Traveller down to try and cope with those conditions. And we would use the Traveller in heavy winds, and we can also use it in light winds. So heavy winds, drop the Traveller down. Light winds, pull the Traveller up and have a slightly fuller sail because we've got the main sheet eased. Okay. Now let's have a look at the jib car. Controlling the shape of the jib or the head sail is pretty simple. There's only one control that we can really use to do that. So looking from above the boat. It's just a track with a little pulley on it that can move. On the MRX, we've got one here that when we use this jib car, if we've got an overlapping head sail, a genoa that comes back here somewhere. With the smaller head sail, the jib, like what's on the boat now, we'll use this jib car here. And we just move the jib car from the back of the track to the front of the track, depending on what shape we want on the sail. We'll be adjusting the angle that that rope interacts with the sail at. So the sheeting angle, we call it, is changed by moving the jib car. Let's have a look at what effect that has on the sail. So here we've got a sail where the jib car is in the middle of the track. If we look at this picture at the top, we've got the jib car forward. So on the top picture, most of the tension from the rope is on the back edge of the sail, that leech. And that means that the foot of the sail is not being stretched, so that's quite full. So this is a powerful sail, and we would use that in light wind conditions. If we move the jib car to the back of the track, because of the sheeting angle, most of that tension is applied to the foot of the sail, which means that there's less curvature in the foot of the sail. So we have a depowered sail. It's flat at the bottom. Because there's not much tension on the leech of the sail, the top part of the sail we might not even be using. That bit could be flapping. Just to recap, jib car forwards, we've got a fuller sail, it's a more powerful sail. If we pull the jib car back, then we're going to have a flatter sail that's less powerful. We can have the jib car anywhere we want on that track. There have been multiple points where that jib car will stop. So we can adjust the power. On most boats, they'll have telltales at the bottom of the sail, in the middle of the sail, and at the top of the sail. And that's just so we can see what the wind is doing at the bottom, middle, and top. So we can adjust the jib car so that we're using as much or as little as the sail as we want. We've got those black lines on the sail as well that will help us visualize the curvature that's in there. And that will help us find the right position for that jib car. So let's go and have a look at that on the model. Right, so back on the model of the boat, and we're going to have a look at the outhaul. Now, unfortunately, the model doesn't have an outhaul. Someone, me, just glued the sail to the boom when I made the model, but we can get the idea. So if we hold the sail at the front and we pull on the back, it just gets tighter in here. So the outhaul is attached to the clew at the back of the sail, and it just pulls that end of the sail towards the end of the boom. So if I pull, we get tension on the foot of the sail, just like that. So there we go, that's how this outhaul works. We've got a bit of a curve in the sail now, and if I put tension on there, it flattens it up and makes it a bit stiffer. Pretty straightforward, just pulling the clew to the end of the boom. The Cunningham. So the Cunningham works on this edge, and we can see at the moment that there's quite a big curve. My sail is not quite long enough, my halyard is just not quite pulling the sail up enough. Maybe I should modify this sail a little bit or move the halyard so we can pull it up a bit more. But before the 1950s America's Cup, the halyard was what created that tension. So here's the curve in the sail that you can see, and if I pull on the halyard, it goes straight. So if I'm using a big sail that goes right to the top, exactly like this model, I can't pull it up anymore. So Mr. Cunningham made a downhaul to pull the sail down, and here we are with the tension in the luff of the sail. Cunningham pulling down, making a horrible curve in the bottom of the sail, but that's okay, we can live with that because the top bit is beautiful and flat, and it's going to make a good aeroplane wing shape in those higher conditions. So light conditions, we want the curve there. Heavy conditions, we want to flatten it up and take out some of that power in that front part of the sail. So that's the Cunningham. Okay. So boom vang. The model does have a boom vang. This used to be a main sheet, but I modified it to be a boom vang. So we've got a rope from not quite the middle of the boom going down to the base of the mast, and if I have wind in the sail, the wind pushing on there will lift up the boom. So I'm going to lift up the boom so that we've got the curve in the sail. The leech is curved, and when I pull on the Cunningham, because this bit is going to get closer to the bottom of the mast, the boom comes down and that tensions up the leech. Let's turn the boat around so you can see that. So here we have a massive curve in the sail, and if I pull on the boom vang, the boom comes down and the leech is nice and straight, and that's a depowered sail. A sail with lots of curve produces lots of lift. A sail that's flatter produces less lift. So the boom vang can control how much curve is in the back of the sail. So let's just do a bit of a recap. Outhaul controls how much curvature we've got in the bottom of the sail, the foot. The Cunningham controls how much sail or how much curve we've got in the luff of the sail just by pulling that down. And if we pull on the leech and everywhere, we can get a really flat sail that doesn't have much curvature in it. So I'm doing the outhaul, pulling down for the Cunningham, and pulling down for the boom vang, and we've got a nice flat sail. This is the type of sail you're going to want to use in 25 knots. A big sail that's got lots of curve in it is the sail you're going to want to use in just 5 knots. All of those controls need to be used. Sometimes we'll have more on one than compared to the others, but at level 1 we just want a flat sail or a big sail that's curved depending on the weather conditions. So I've turned our model round now. Instead of the wind coming from this side, it's coming from up here. So we're heading into wind at this point. And I want to talk to you about the traveller. So this is the traveller here, and this is our main sheet. We've got our boom vang here, and as already discussed, the boom vang and the tension in it controls how high the boom is, and therefore how much curvature we've got in the back of the sail. We can do a very similar thing with the main sheet. So this rope here, I can set for the height of the boom. So with the wind blowing in this sail, the boom will lift a little bit, and that will cause the curvature. Now in light winds, I might want lots of curve in that sail, but I won't necessarily want the sail in this position. I want the sail in a bit more. So I've got a fairly long main sheet there. If I move the traveller so it's up there, then the boom is in further. I'll show you that again. So I'm using the main sheet to set the sail shape I want, the curvature that's in the sail, but the boom's out too far. So I'm going to move this point here further that way so that the boom is closer in and I've still got the sail in the right shape that I want. So that's given me the right position for the boom across the boat, but it's also allowing me to position the height of the boom to get the curvature that I want. And this is more powerful than the boom vang. I mentioned that a lot of cruising boats have done away with the Traveller because it's a little bit complicated and people don't seem to be using them. They just have a beefed up boom vang that's a bit more substantial so that they can flatten the back edge of the sail out. This Traveller arrangement does give us a few more tuning advantages though. The main point that we have is that if we want to really flatten this sail off, because the main sheet is acting at the end of the boom, we've got a much longer lever. So the main sheet is much more effective at flattening the leach of the sail compared to the boom vang. So if I pull the main sheet really tight, I can get that leach really tight in flat, which in strong wind would be exactly what I needed to do, but the boom is right over the center line and I need the boom to be more towards the corner of the boat when we're sailing upwind. So I can set the tension in the leach, can flatten the sail off. In strong winds, I'm going to drop the Traveller downwind, Traveller down, lots of main sheet tension, lots of tension in the leach, a very flat sail. In light conditions, I'm going to ease the main sheet. I'm going to pull the Traveller up so we can still have the boom in the correct position for the direction we're sailing in, but I can have much more curve in the sail and a much more powerful sail. So that's the Traveller. So here, looking at the jib, at our jib car position, we can see the sheeting angle. So here, if this is the position of the jib, we've got a big curve in the foot and the leach is quite tight. If I'm pulling from further back, I can have the foot of the sail really flat and the leach quite slack. Now, if we flatten the bottom of the sail, that bit of the sail is going to produce less power. The top bit of the sail is also going to produce less power because that's going to be quite flappy at the top. So we're effectively just using half the sail at this point. If we want a more powerful sail, we'll put the jib forward. That will give us a nice curve and it will pull the top of the sail in, so we've got all of the sail working this time. There we go, there's the jib cars. Now twist is something that can be even more complicated. Basically, depending on the height of the boom, we can have the sail at the bottom flat and the sail at the top of the mast quite curved. And we might want to do that because the wind is different on the surface to what the wind is like at the top of the mast. It might be that we don't want to use all of the sail. So here we go, at the bottom of the sail, it's quite flat. And as we work up to the top of the sail, we're getting more and more curve into the sail. So that would make the top of the sail more powerful. Now in heavy conditions, that would make us lean over a lot. So we're not always going to want to do that. Now this picture here is extremely exaggerated. We wouldn't want to be sailing with a sail with that much twist. But this highlights what we're trying to do here with twist. On older boats that don't have a very flexible mast, a very rigid mast, we might sail with lots of twist. So the top of the sail is not really doing anything. There's a lot of turbulence. The air's not really flowing over it. It's flapping a little bit. Here we've got most of the sail working, top of the sail not working. Here we've got a bit more of the sail working. And here all of the sail is engaged and the air's flowing all of it. This would be a less powerful sail because we're only really using the bottom part. That's how you would sail an older fashioned boat if you wanted to depower the main sail. More modern boats, we would be sailing with a flat sail and using all of it and then steering the boat to make the sail flap. So I can make the sail flat by easing the boom out, or I can make the sail flat by turning into the no-go zone. With a little bit of feel, we can do what's called feathering, where if the boat starts to heel too much, then we just turn up into the no-go zone a little bit. And when it flattens and slows down, then we bear away and pick up speed again. I would rather sail like that than having a lot of the sail flapping, because this is just money flying off the back of the sail. Yeah, so that's twist. Don't worry too much about that. That's quite high level, not really level 1, but I talk about it because well, we have a traveller and we can adjust the twist on our sailing boats. All of the controls will affect the others. I know this topic is quite complex. Really, for level 1, we just need to know that all of the controls, whether it's a boom Vang, an Outhaul, a Cunningham, they're just pulling on the sail. It's just a rope that pulls on the sail. And if it pulls on the sail, it stretches that fabric and it flattens the sail. In strong wind conditions, we're going to want to flatten the sail. We're going to want to we need to reduce the power that the sail is creating. And we're simply going to pull them all on. If we still don't have control of the boat, if we're still struggling with the tiller to get control of the boat, then we're going to pull them on more. And eventually, when we get a really flat sail, we'll have control of the boat and we'll be happy. In a few years' time, when you've had a bit more experience, you'll be able to look at the sail and say, oh yeah, it needs a bit more Cunningham, or maybe I need to ease the Vang. But that will come with experience. Right now, you know what the controls are. You know they just put tension on the sail and they stretch the sail. And you know that we need to flatten the sail off in stronger conditions. We need to take that curvature out of the sail. That will reduce the power the sail makes and give us more control of the boat. Well done for making it to the end of Module 5. Have a go at the quiz. You can revisit the module as many times as you like. You can redo the quiz as many times as you like. When you're happy with your score, when you've got the knowledge that you need from this module, move on to Module 6, and I'll see you there.